Here's a preview of what you'll hear on this episode of Beyond the Wheel.
Journey with confidence. When you hit the road, you'll know where you're going, where you're going to fuel up, where you'll be stopping, and whether or not you can fit in those locations. All the routing provided by RV Trip Wizard is RV safe based on the height, weight, length, and propane status you enter. You can vet those locations with routing and satellite view, elevation. You can check the grade. In other words, you can kind of, the best way to describe it is that you completely plan and vet that trip, that route, that maybe once in a lifetime chance to go to the Grand Canyon, for example. You know what you're doing before you leave the door.
Now enjoy the show.
You are listening to Beyond the Wheel, a podcast about the people and ideas that drive the RV community forward.
This episode is brought to you by Battleborn Batteries, the best name in the RV and marine industry. These lithium batteries are designed and assembled in the USA, backed by a 10-year warranty. The best solution for your battery anxiety, so go check them out at battlebornbatteries.com.
Whether your adventure is on the road, on the water, or off the grid, Battleborn batteries keep you out there longer.
Hey everyone, Kenny here. Do you travel with pets and are looking for a way to monitor and be alerted of temperature spikes in your RV while away? I've been using a temp stick in our RV for over 3 years, and I love the simplicity of being able to connect to any of our hotspots, as well as not having the hassle of any subscription or service fees. If you are looking for a reliable way to protect your pets while away, check out TempStick at tempstick.com. Hey everyone, today we are bringing you a new episode just in time for the busiest travel day of the year. We are joined by Patrick Buchanan from RV Trip Wizard. RV Trip Wizard is a web-based trip planning tool specially designed for RVers, with features that allow you to know what your trip will cost you before you even hit the road. RV Trip Wizard takes into account your RV's dimensions and miles per gallon to let you know where the best places to stop for fuel are along the way to make sure you can easily navigate in and out of fuel stations. It also lets you know about places to eat, sightsee, and where to stay, with the ability to filter out anything you do not want it to suggest. So without any further ado, let's get this episode started with Patrick Buchanan and Trip Wizard.
Hi, Patrick. Thanks so much for joining us on Beyond the Wheel. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your role with RV Trip Wizard?
Sure. Right now, I manage some of our industry relationships, whether that be influencers or content creators, our affiliate program, or even vendors looking to reach our vast RVing audience. I was actually an RVer and an RV Trip Wizard user before I came to work for RV Life. I had a successful career as an IT professional, and the opportunity arose to work at a company that I had a product I loved and to be able to RV more and even do it on the clock. So it was kind of a no-brainer.
So you know RV Trip Wizard very well because you were a user before you started working with it. In your own words, what's the best way to describe what RV Trip Wizard is?
RV Trip Wizard is a premier start to finish RV trip planning tool designed to help you eliminate surprises and, as we like to say, journey with confidence. When you hit the road, you'll know where you're going, where you're going to fuel up, where you'll be stopping, and whether or not you can fit in those locations. All the routing provided by RV Trip Wizard is RV safe based on the height, weight, length, and propane status you enter. You can vet those locations with routing and satellite view, elevation. You can check the grade. In other words, you can kind of, the best way to describe it is that you completely plan and vet that trip, that route, that maybe once in a lifetime chance to go to the Grand Canyon, for example. You know what you're doing before you leave the door, before you leave the driveway.
Okay. I always like the term like know before you go, and that's what this sounds like to me.
100%.
Okay. And you said that you can put in your dimensions of the RV, so it knows what you're driving and you can plan accordingly.
Right. Like I always said, height, weight, and length, but also propane status. Now,
Nice.
Here in Texas and out west, you don't have a lot of concern necessarily for propane, but the farther east and the farther northeast you go, you will run into those occasional bridges or tunnels, that not only do you have to have propane turned off, there's a few that you can't go in no matter what. And so it's just good to know about those. Again, I don't concern myself a bunch with it. Well, my coach is all electric, so I don't concern myself with it at all. But a lot of the folks in the east and the deep northeast, it's definitely a concern.
I just went to the Outer Banks with my RV, and there was a tunnel. They had a propane check station where they had to verify that the propane was turned off before you entered the tunnel.
Yeah, absolutely. And then there's just a few that you just can't do at all. So it's just good to know that when you're planning.
You mentioned gas stations too. That's a nice feature too of where you're going to stop. So can you plan as far as if you have a gas coach or a diesel coach?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, the fuel feature is significant. Of course, I drive a big diesel pusher, and when you're 43 feet long pulling a Jeep, that's 60 feet. You can't just pull over anywhere. And in fact, oddly enough, for me, getting fuel is actually pretty simple because I go through the truck stops, right? The folks that really have their work cut out for them are those folks pulling big fifth wheels, particularly if it's a gas vehicle, which it shouldn't be, but most cases you're not going to find a fifth wheel in a gasser, but maybe a long trailer. But these folks, they have to be able to plan fuel stops, and they're not always very comfortable with going through the trucker lanes. And so they've got to find fuel stations that they can fit under and all that type of thing. And so with RV Trip Wizard, you plug in your fuel capacity, you plug in your reserve fuel. Now, anybody with a motorhome knows that's a quarter of a tank, right? You got to keep the generator running, things like that. For some folks, it's 3, 5, 10 gallons, whatever their comfort level is. And then you put in your miles per gallon, and Trip Wizard will show you exactly on the map where you will need fuel. And then you just pick a fuel station as close to that as you can, add it to your trip, and it recalculates, shows you the next spot you're going to need fuel. When you're going through, most of the time, again, I pick the truck stops, but, there's some spots where there aren't truck stops out there. Comes to mind is a particularly southern middle Colorado. There's a stretch there where there's not a real pilot or something, and you've got to rely on just a diesel station, right? You can use the satellite view and the street view to fully vet that gas station out, that fuel station. Will I fit? Do they have an awning? How tall is it? Are the diesel pumps covered? Am I going to get in and out of there? What's the egress to get into the station? And I vet that stuff all out ahead of time, and it changes. If I see where I normally would need fuel, and no way I'm going to get in that spot, I'm going to get fuel a little sooner, and that's going to change my destination, my next fuel stop essentially, and I'll find something a little better down the road because I can skew that by simply getting fuel a little sooner. There's a thing, with electric vehicles, we talk about range anxiety. With RVers, it's fuel anxiety. Is can I make it to the station, and will I fit there when I do get there? And you can eliminate that from your RV trip planning by using a tool like RV Trip Wizard.
Yeah, it sounds like there's been a lot of growth or additions to the original, probably what was the original RV Trip Wizard. How long has Trip Wizard been around, and is it constantly being improved?
So we acquired RV Trip Wizard in 2015 from an independent RVer / developer. He actually built it himself in 2012. He was a full-time RVer with a big bus, and he was a retired developer. And he's like, I need a tool that helps me find these places and plan my route better. And of course, nothing existed at that time. He built it, was real happy with it. We reached a point where he was ready to sell it. He couldn't support it anymore. It was growing so much, his support base. He just couldn't support the amount of inquiries and things. But he was really adamant to sell it to somebody that was going to grow it, nurture his baby, so to speak, and really make it continue to improve and make it a quality program for RVers. And obviously we fit that bill with our history and background. Over those years, since 2015, there have been thousands of updates. It's every month or so, or 6 weeks, I think maybe what the time is called, the time frame is perhaps. You'll log into Trip Wizard one day and there'll be, here's what's new, here's what's new, here's what's new. And our team's very responsive to customer needs, changes, things that have to happen. Since TripWizard's essentially a live site that you're using in a web browser, it is always up to date. There's never anything to download, never anything to update. It's all automatic, and our team just constantly polishes and adds new features.
And I think one cool thing that I would like to mention is that when you use RV TripWizard and you're looking for a place to stay, when you look at reviews, it automatically goes to Campground Reviews, which is probably the best site for good campground reviews out there.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, all of our campground data comes from Campground Reviews. We own this site. It has 2 decades worth of data, and it's both data-driven and resource-driven. So in other words, we get data feeds, all the KOAs, all the 1,000 trails, all the state parks, et cetera, but it's also a little bit of crowdsourcing in that if you, I had a fellow email me the other day, he's booking along, there's a brand new RV park sprouted up in Beaumont, Texas, of all places. Looked like a nice place, but it was brand spanking new. And if that campground owner doesn't know to go to Campground Reviews and add themselves, an RVer might go by and say, hey, I stayed at this place. You guys should know about it. And there's a place they can go in and add campground. But all that data, that campground data, is driven from Campground Reviews. And just to elaborate, there's also within the tool restaurants, museum, points of interest, rest areas, fuel stations. We kind of touched on a little bit earlier, but
Restaurants and things like that, is that based off of customer feedback?
I think most of that is from some sort of, or at least originates from some sort of a data feed. There's a lot of that data that's out there on the internet. There's a lot of repackagers that say, hey, here's it's generic, in a sense of name, address, phone number of all the restaurants in Utah or whatever the case may be. There's folks that sort of prepackage that stuff for us. Some of it we have direct relationships with, let's say the KOAs, again, for example, it just comes to mind, or going out and grabbing a feed from the National Park Service, whatever the case may be. But anything we can get a hold of data-wise is in there. But again, like the campgrounds, anything and everything can be crowdsourced. So if somebody reports, hey, you guys really need to have this, and I jokingly always call it the largest ball of twine or something. You guys should add the largest ball of twine to your list. So we do that, and we're real responsive to try to add those features in.
Recently on a trip, my wife and I saw a sign that said the largest pistachio in America or something like that. I was like, we might have to go check that out someday.
Well, I've been there. I stayed right across the street from it. It's a place down in New Mexico, and I think we stayed at a little RV place called Boot Hill RV Resort. I question possibly the use of the word resort. Either it's not there, or I shouldn't have used it, or maybe they shouldn't have used it. But it was a nice little place, but it was right across the street from this gigantic pistachio. And they're out there. I saw the largest rocking chair in the country somewhere with my kid one time. So,
nice. I saw a sign for that one too.
Yeah.
So RV TripWizard isn't necessarily an app then, because you said it's a web browser. You'll be able to access this through a computer or I would imagine your phone as well, but it doesn't sound like there's anything to download. You're not downloading something on your phone. You get an access or a login, and then you access it that way. Is that correct?
Right. So RV, we get asked all the time, RV TripWizard, do you use it on your phone, your tablet, your desktop, or what is it? So it's all of the above. All right. RV TripWizard is part of what we call RV Life Pro. You can't buy one and not get the other. You get the whole ball of wax for one low price, right? RV Life Pro is what we call the package, which includes RV TripWizard and a mobile GPS app for your phone, and together. So RV TripWizard is web-based, browser-based, as we say, and can be used on essentially anything with an updated browser. A laptop, a tablet, a computer, even a mobile device, even on your phone, right? You can access the planning feature through anything with a web browser that can run a popular up-to-date web browser like Chrome, Firefox, Safari, obviously Windows computers, things like that. The second part of that here, so it's important to understand that for the GPS functionality and the voice command turn by turn, you've got to also use the included RV Life mobile app. The official name for that app, it's kind of like dog breeds. The dog name is Spot, but his official breed name is, King Caliente, whatever, something. So the official dog name is called the RV Life GPS and Campgrounds app. So that's the name of the mobile app. You sign into the app with the same email and password you use for TripWizard to plan your trip, and now you can navigate the trip on your mobile device. Now, will it run on will the mobile app run on the iPad? Sure. But does your iPad typically have a GPS chip and all that? No, it does not, most of the time. For those users that have an actual separate cell data plan for their iPad, they can knock themselves out and use this on there. Otherwise, most people are just going to use it on their Android or Apple phone. For the navigation piece, the trip planning is still done in TripWizard. Now, I've seen some folks that were quite adept at using their Android phone, for example, or their large Apple phone, whatever, at planning on the web browser in TripWizard and navigating right there on the same device. You got to have great eyesight and great patience to want to plan a trip on your phone. Granted, a one-nighter is not a big deal, and it's not difficult to do that. But if you're sitting there like me planning a 2, 3, 4 week trip, I'm going to do that on my laptop, on my computer, on my big tablet, or whatever I may have, iPad. I'm going to plan that trip with TripWizard, and then when it comes time to get behind the wheel, I'm going to use that mobile app to actually take and what I always say, execute that trip.
And so all the information that you've planned in the TripWizard part integrates with the GPS part.
Right. So your trip is really in the cloud. So if you hop on a different computer, hop on your wife's computer, you're at a hotel and you hop on the business computer downstairs in the room there at the hotel, whatever, no matter what computer you're on or what web browser, when you log in with your TripWizard credentials, that trip is in the cloud and it's there. So now when I grab that mobile device and I sign into the phone, it reaches out to the cloud and says, oh, hey, here's your trips. And you just tap on it, navigate, and go. The mobile device has an option. It's not necessary or required, but it has an option to download the state data, the trip data, in case you're, you think maybe you're going to be in an area where cell signal is a little bit sketchy and that type of stuff, and you can't get that data as readily. You can just, while you're at home or at your campground on Wi-Fi, just download that. I just took a trip to the Albuquerque Balloon Fiesta, and so my route crossed really just Texas and New Mexico. So if I download that trip, it'll download those two states. And it's not just the mapping or the routing data, it's all the campgrounds too, which is really nice. A lot of people don't realize that, but if you ever got stuck and you needed to find another campground somewhere, that data's there. A trip to Niagara is going to have all those states that I touched from Texas to Niagara along the way, or you can go to the back and just download the whole country if you want to, right? And we include Mexico and Canada in that. I think I looked and added it up, and in the whole entirety of this, the US was only like 2 gig, and most phones nowadays can handle that with no problem at all. But the downloading isn't particularly mandatory. It's just an option we give folks, and certainly many take advantage of that.
Options are always nice. I think I also saw something on the website that said for anybody using a Garmin that you're able to take, I don't know how you do this, but are you able to transfer this information to a Garmin or some other type of GPS?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, absolutely. So the Garmin's just simply require on your computer, or you've got to have what's called Garmin Basecamp. This is a Garmin necessity. It's nothing to do with us. We'll export your trip, or you can click on a feature there and send that trip. Essentially, you'll create what's called a GPX file. And that GPX file gets imported into Basecamp. Basecamp knows how to look at it, manipulate it to cram it into your Garmin. And then you do that. So that's a feature, particularly a popular feature, particularly for the Garmin users. And it all depends on how convenient it is. The Garmin head in my motorhome is an SD card, and I've got to hook up cables and all that kind of junk, and I don't really particularly care to do that. But for those that have an easy way to hook that Garmin to their laptop, that's a great option. The Rand McNally's were really popular for a while. They seem to handle a CSV file pretty well. And so you can export this trip to a CSV file and import that into the Rand McNally. I've got both options to do that. And I've found that it's neat at first that I can do it. And then it's like, dude, the whole trip's already on my phone and I don't have to ever type anything in if I just use the RV Life app. And so I just got a little holder and a little power cable and I just use the app because everything's already there without any extra effort. But that said, again, those folks that love their Garmin's, yeah, we can accommodate you.
I have another quick question or follow-up question. Say you have your trip planned and maybe you get hungry or whatever and you stop, and where you stop also has fuel, and you decide, you know what, I'm going to fill up here now. Is there a way now to adjust your trip because you already planned out where you were stopping for fuel originally?
You could go back a couple of different ways. You could, ultimately, it involves, if you're going to skew the entire trip, or if you want to redo all your fuel stations for the entire trip, you've got to get back into Trip Wizard and do that. And you could do it from the phone. Like, as we mentioned, it's certainly capable of editing from the small browser in your phone, or you could just wait till the evening, do it on your laptop in the rig, or what have you. Or you might just decide, I'm just going to go ahead and fill up here because I want to, but I'm still going to top off at my next fuel stop just to keep things on track. It all depends on that comfort level and your planning. I think for folks that underestimate, they either don't leave enough reserve, or they they're overestimate their miles per gallon. They're thinking, nah, there's no way I'm going to get 8 miles per gallon. This baby's going to get 12 for sure. Yeah, it's not. So, but that's a couple of options are, again, you could sit back and replan your fuel stops once you get in front of the computer, or take the time to sit on your phone and make those changes. And then, of course, when you navigate back to the app, you just go back to the RV Trip Wizard screen, swipe down, and let it refresh, and your changes are almost automatic. So that's really cool. But if you're going to really change your fuel strategy in the middle of a trip, I would be more inclined to just top off, even if it was only 10 gallons, top off at that planned fuel stop, and then you're back on track. But by all means, you can go back and alter that strategy.
One other thing I think that was mentioned is that it can give you like an estimated cost per trip. How does that feature work?
It's quite interesting. So it's really twofold. You start out by plugging in some budget numbers. Typically, that's going to be campground costs, meals, and fuel costs. The meals is kind of an interesting one, because I have folks that use that, and then I have some that say, you know what, I'm going to eat anyway, whether I'm RVing or not RVing. I don't consider that an expense, so I'm going to leave that zero. I would probably fall into that category as well. I don't worry about that. I'm going to eat one way or another. And for us, I mean, I load up the fridge and cabinets before we leave anyway. So now am I going to go put my grocery store receipt numbers? No, I'm not going to mess with that. But for those that are planning a very long trip on the road, or perhaps they're full-time and they really want to, they truly want a budget, by all means, we give you that flexibility. For fuel, I mean, I just put $3. It's going to change here in Texas. It's less. In California or in the mountains, it's more, but that's my number. Camping can be dependent on the type of stays you like. You might put $80 a night. You might put 20. If you're 1,000 trails, you might put 10 or $2, right? But the idea is you put in a budget number. Now, when I plan my trip, I have that budget number sitting in front of me. Well, now I've, for example, if I'm planning a trip from here to wherever, doesn't matter, call it Grand Junction, right? I've got grandbabies in Grand Junction. So Grand Junction, and it's going to take me 4 or 5 days to get up there, whatever the case may be. Well, I'm going to make, especially now in today's climate, I'm going to make reservations everywhere I go. And once I make that reservation, well, guess what? I know exactly how much that stay is going to cost me. So if I've averaged $50, that's the number that shows up. But I can go in there and override that and say, okay, this one's $62.49 and this one's $28.50, and whatever the case may be. So I'll have that budget number. Post trip, if I really wanted to, I could go in and plug in fuel dollars and things like that. Again, I just don't care about that. It's not, the $3 is close enough for me. But we do have lots of folks that track their expenses explicitly, whether it be curiosity, budgeting, taxes, whatever their reason is, and they will go back into that fuel stop and say, okay, here's exactly what that cost me. And they'll come back retroactively and make those changes. So the budgeting's always been there. It's a neat feature. It's an important feature. Some folks don't want to see it. You just put all zeros and don't worry about it.
Yeah, for people that are traveling for work, I could see that as a great advantage.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I really like that feature because I like to track things to the penny. Once you have all that, let's say you've completed your trip, does that information go away? Does it stay in the cloud? Can I export it into my own personal files?
You can, all that trip data can be exported like to an Excel file if you want. And what you would typically do, it's kept in the cloud for, as right now, forever. I suppose nobody knows when that is actually, but we keep it forever. The actual data is not hard to manage because it's ultimately just data points, right? There's not a lot of images and things that we're storing. So, but you typically will take that out of active status and put it in archive status. Similarly, if you're planning several trips and you're planning several iterations of trips, hey, we're going from here to Devil's Tower, but if this happens, we're going to go this way. If this happens, we're going to go that way. So I might have Devil's Tower 1, 2, 3, and 4 as I'm planning in stages. I have those in my tentative section. And then when I finally figure out the one I want, I move it to active status. The reason I do that is because on your phone, when it comes to the navigation, you're only going to see active trips. And that's so that you're not paging through 40 or 50 trips on your phone to find the one you need right now. It's only going to show you the active ones that you're taking. It's a nice way to clean up what's on your phone, but you never lose that data. You can have multiple copies of that data in active, tentative, and archive status.
One thing I also saw on your site was that one of the features that are highlighted is unbiased information. I just wanted to clarify that means it's user reviews, like you guys aren't going in and selecting the reviews that you want put like in campground reviews for etc. You're not going through and editing and selecting only the reviews that you want to see. Is that a correct interpretation of that?
Yeah, that's 100% correct. And the unbiased also factors into a good example of that is maybe the Good Sam stuff, where they are always and really at no fault to them, right? Why would you not promote your own brand, right? So no fault to them, but they're essentially promoting their Good Sam campgrounds. We don't have any affiliation with anyone. It's completely unbiased. We show you literally every single campground on the planet that we're aware of, which is 99% of them, I'm sure. We're presenting that data in unbiased. We're not leading you toward Thousand Trails or KOA or Blue Water or anybody like that. We're just showing, look, and particularly when you see how the tool works from the standpoint of what its greatest strength is, it's in our best interest to show you everything at that one spot that you need it. From just as a sidebar on the campground reviews, you're correct. We don't edit those or allow those to be edited. Now, there is always the exception. A classic example is simply, this person said our pool was dirty and terrible, and we don't have a pool. so that's gonna. And typically, somebody just picked the wrong campground, and obviously, we're going to strike that from the record because it's just not right. You can't have that type of stuff. But otherwise, yeah, reviews are what they are, and all that data, and that's why the tools are so powerful, is because the underlying strength that girds these things is decades worth of data in campground reviews. 25,000 plus campgrounds, about 500,000 reviews, tens of thousands of pictures and facts and all these types of things. And you have to be careful on some of these review sites. I heard of something the other day, or from one of them, and it was over 30,000 campgrounds and sites. Wait a minute. You slipped the word sites in there. Now you're counting 100 per campground potentially. If we're going to play that game, we're like, yeah, we've got 1 million sites. Let's play that game. So just keep that in mind. But it's all powered by campground reviews, and that's what That's what makes these tools so strong.
I would like to say though, I am slightly biased, and when we're traveling, we do like to stay at
Yep.
KOAs. Am I able to filter that? Can I say, just show me KOAs along this route? I'm not even interested in looking.
Oh, absolutely. The filtering is so powerful that you if you're not careful, you can filter yourself right out of a campground. And we'll get folks that say, well, I want a state park that is 5 stars with 50 amp service and sewer, and they're not thinking it through. And of course, they get no campgrounds because your state parks don't have all those things most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, filter by KOA, filter by state park, filter by kid friendly, big rig friendly, Wi-Fi only, pet friendly, 4 stars, 3 stars, 5 stars. Literally, you can name the type of filter, and one exists to filter. And we did a lot of KOAs as well because they're real pet friendly. And I went to a ton of KOAs for a while there. And you can. I laugh a lot of times. Folks will filter by rating, and they say, well, we really only want 5-star campgrounds. Well, your selection's pretty limited unless you're in Phoenix or Florida, because most of these campgrounds are not up to what we would all call 5-star campgrounds. But the amount of pull-ins, big rig friendly, 30 amp, 50 amp, 20 amp, bathrooms, pool, whatever, if you can think of it, you can filter by it.
Okay, very cool. I like that you can filter through review and 5-star review, but I agree with you. I mean, it's near impossible to get a 5-star review. So
yeah.
I feel, and we stay at KOAs for the same reason. They're super pet friendly. Almost every one of them has that little dog loop or gated fenced area for our pup, for her to get her energy out while traveling. And we're not affiliated with KOA in any way. It's just,
No, they are what they are. And they just seem like they've done a really strong refresh of all their properties. And you go in there and they're just, the signage is fresh. The folks have yellow shirts on, and they just feels like they care. And that's the way it should be all around. But I think noticeably within the last couple of years, I think KOA is really up the game. And again, we don't have any affiliation with them in any way. But as an RVer, I would stand by that statement any day of the week.
Before we get into how much RV Trip Wizard costs and where people can check it out, I think it's probably good to just talk about I'm going to make up a word here, Kenny, instead of ecosystem, RV ecosystem that RV Trip Wizard falls under, like the big, broader RV life. Because I think when, like you said, to use it, you download the RV Life something app, probably knowing what else is within that RV ecosystem.
Well, yeah, within real quickly within the app, of course, we have the RV GPS instructions and safe directions and things we talked about. There's also access to all of our articles and things from many of our websites. And then in an ad hoc, in a pinch, you could pull over and find rest stops, fuel stops, campgrounds, all that sort of thing, even if you didn't have a trip planned. If you just say, hey, the traffic's terrible, everything's gone awry, our planned stop, there's no way we're getting there before midnight, we need to pull over and find a fuel station and a campground, just flip over to another tab on that app and find it. What makes the RV Life Pro bundle so authentic is that it's run by a company, or it's produced by us, a company that focuses exclusively on the RV life. All 40 plus of our websites and digital properties are RV centric, or RV related, whether it's campground reviews we've talked about. Most folks, I tell people that if you ever have an RV problem and you Google it, there's 100% chance you'll find people talking about that problem on irv2.com, which we always just call IRV2, obviously. It's the #1 RV forum out there. We've got dozens of forums like that, smaller ones that are brand centric. We've got a half a dozen content sites, articles about RVing. How do I do this? What's the best generator? What are the best, black tank tools? And virtually any topic that somebody's asked or broached, you can find us talking about it on our content sites, whether it's our RV Life content. It's actually RV Life /magazine, Camper Report, do-it-yourself RV, camper smarts, van lifers. I mean, we've got every base covered from all of our forums. It's just all, and a huge portion of our staff is either RVers or frequent full-time. We've got full-time RVers, frequent RVers, and at this point, virtually everyone has at least done some RVing. We may have a coder, a programmer hacking away at some stuff that maybe hasn't yet had the chance to get out in an RV. We've been adding people so fast because we were growing so much, but virtually everybody I can think of at this point I know is either an RVer or has RV'd this year. So we really try to, what do they say, eat your own dog food? Is that what's that phrase? I don't think I'm a fan of that phrase particularly, but we practice what we preach, I think, is probably a little bit more. So we're not just some big corporate conglomerate that maybe builds RVs and says, well, here, let's sell some software as well. Our whole life is this system and this lifestyle. And so we understand it very well, and that's reflected in our tools.
Yeah, the IRV2 is definitely the best forum out there for RVers. It's the one that I've been turning to before I even RV'd, just to start learn. Yep. All my research. Yep. It's a great forum. I highly recommend IRV2 to everybody. And I had no idea that you guys were part of that.
Yeah.
So cool
it's a strong part of our, again, to use the word ecosystem or RV ecosystem. It's a very strong part of that system.
And then on your website, it says that you can try RV Trip Wizard before you buy. How does something like that work? Is it like a money back guarantee? Is that how it's a try before you buy? Or
so it's all you have to do is, and we always recommend, and it's really important that folks sign up for this at rvlife.com. Even though you can download the app and should download the app at some point, if you try to buy it through Apple, you're not getting the same thing as if you buy it through us. But if you're getting the same app, but you're losing a little bit of that flexibility, I think. If you go to rvlife.com and you sign up, you get 7 days to try it. Now, we're going to take your credit card information and all that. And if within that 7 days, all you got to do is go click up in RV Trip, click the little billing thing and check the box off, reoccur or sign up, whatever it is. But it's important to start there because you get your fingers in RV Trip Wizard. You also, just from a logistical standpoint, it kind of starts the ball rolling. You understand what your email address and password are very clearly, so that when you do download the app, instead of your phone trying to help you and say, well, hey, do you want to use Face ID? It's like, no, I want to use these credentials that I know already work for Trip Wizard. I want to use them in my app so it ties things together properly. And so that's just the best process about going about that. Now, some recent rulings with Apple about forcing them to increase their flexibility from a payment standpoint should work to our favor, in that we'll be able to give you that same experience from within inside the Apple experience versus having to go to the website first. But it's just best to start at the website, rvlife.com, try the 7-day trial for free. And then if you don't like it, just stop the trial. You know what? And truthfully, if you get in there a couple of weeks, you say, I think I'm good with this. Let me try a couple more weeks. And you just decide for whatever reason you hate it. I talked to a poor soul that wrecked their RV like 2 weeks after they bought it. And I was like, yeah, look, we'll just give you your money back. We're okay with that. We're not out to, we're here for the long haul. So if you're a couple of weeks in and you still hate it, just be friendly and let us know and say, hey, this just wasn't for me. We'll take care of you. Don't worry about that.
Can't ask for more than that.
Nah.
What is the cost? Is it per year? Is it a one-time?
It is $49 a year. One night camping, and you're covered for the whole year. We'll, we're always adding features and adding staff and things like that. So right now we're still holding on to that price, and we're going to try to hold on to that as long as we can, as long as the budget allows. But for the cost of one night's camping, you've got these tools available to you all year. We didn't really talk about it, but we also include with that subscription access to a website called Maintain My RV. And this is kind of a newer site we're still working on quite a bit. but you can go in there and plug in some information about your RV, and it'll shoot you an email when it's time to fill your batteries with distilled water, or maybe lubricate the slide rails, or any of those types of things you're doing, change the oil, whatever the case may be. You can, it'll shoot you an email and tell you it's time to do that. Still a little bit of work getting that set up, and I think by this time next year we may have a different that thing may be updated. We'll see how things go. But we've been so busy, and of course last year we had no off season. But yeah, Maintain My RV comes with that, and you get the whole thing for the $49.
So that's the whole RV Life Pro bundle that you get.
That is correct.
Oh wow, that's a great price, I think.
Yeah, it is. We were just at the Hershey show, and folks would come up and we would talk about the whole thing, and they'd be like, "How much is it?" And we'd say $49 a month. That's not bad. And I go, "No, a year." I'm like, "Oh my God!" And it's not even it becomes a no-brainer at that point when you're struggling, when you realize how much time it takes to plan. And I tell people there's two things Google does not know about you, surprisingly, and that is how tall your RV is and how fast you drive. Without that knowledge, it can't possibly estimate where you're going to be at the end of the driving day. And RV Trip Wizard knows exactly where you're going to be. And it also presents those available campgrounds to coincide with that spot you'll be at the end of the day, to show you where you can camp and stay and all that type of thing. So it's a fabulous tool, and we're really proud of it.
Yeah, I think for $50 a year, you can honestly say you can RV with confidence. I think that's great.
Absolutely. Very good.
Yeah, I think that's great. Well, Patrick, I think that is all of our questions. Is there anything that we might have missed or that you would like to add to the conversation?
No, I think it was good.
All right. Well, we want to thank you for your time. We appreciate you coming on and telling us all about RV Trip Wizard. And we actually would like to have you back on to talk a little bit more about RV Life Pro, maybe deeper dives into the forums or the campground reviews.
And I'm always available. Give me a shout. I'd love to be back on the show again. Thanks for having me. And it's been a pleasure.
Julie is the trip planner in our family. She has used RV Trip Wizard for planning and campground reviews as the trusted source for determining where we are going to stay. When RV Life came out with their bundle, she purchased it right away. I have to say that since she has been using these tools, we have never been steered wrong. As always, thanks to Battleborn Batteries and TempStick for sponsoring the show. As users of both companies' products, Kenny and I can vouch for the quality and customer service provided by both of them. I am sure they are having holiday sales, so make sure to visit their websites highlighted in the show notes. Thanks everyone, and we will see you in 2 weeks with a new episode.
This episode is brought to you by Battleborn Batteries, the best name in the RV and marine industry. These lithium batteries are designed and assembled in the USA, backed by a 10-year warranty. The best solution for your battery anxiety. So go check them out at battlebornbatteries.com. Hey everyone, Kenny here. Do you travel with pets and are looking for a way to monitor and be alerted of temperature spikes in your RV while away? I've been using a TempStick in our RV for over 3 years, and I love the simplicity of being able to connect to any of our hotspots, as well as not having the hassle of any subscription or service fees. If you are looking for a reliable way to protect your pets while away, check out TempStick at tempstick.com.